The first thing I noticed was the red coffee mug on the kitchen counter. It shouldn't have been there. Paige never left it out. She was obsessive about putting it back in the cupboard, handle facing exactly to the right. But there it sat, cold, with a thin ring of dark liquid at the bottom and a single house key resting inside it. Everything else felt wrong. The kitchen had an echo, like it was bigger than before. When I stepped into the living room, the echo followed me, because the furniture didn't. The couch was gone. The TV stand. Even the crooked lamp we kept saying we'd replace, but never did. I didn't call out her name. I just walked from room to room, finding nothing but small, deliberate traces, like she'd wanted me to notice what was missing. Upstairs, the closet was empty except for a single wire hanger swaying like it had been moved seconds before I opened the door. That's when I checked my phone. No signal. No service. Not even a carrier name in the corner. I opened my laptop. Bank accounts drained. All of them. And then, right when my stomach was starting to twist into something sharp, I heard it. 3 slow knocks on the front door. Weeks later, she'd tell me she left that red mug for a reason. But that night, all I could think was, whoever was knocking, it wasn't going to be her. I froze halfway down the stairs, every muscle in my legs tight, the sound of those 3 knocks still hanging in the air. It wasn't the frantic pounding of someone desperate, nor the casual rap of a neighbor. It was slow, even, almost polite, like whoever was outside already knew I would answer. I reached the front door, but didn't open it right away, just stood there, hand on the knob, listening. Then came 3 more knocks. Exactly the same rhythm. I finally pulled the door open, expecting maybe a delivery guy, maybe the police. Instead, there was no one. Just the evening air, heavy with the smell of rain, and a small cardboard box sitting neatly on the welcome mat. It was unmarked, no postage, no writing, nothing. I carried it inside, my palms sweating against the thin cardboard. The box was surprisingly heavy for its size. No tape, just the lid tucked into itself. I opened it, half expecting something ridiculous like one of those prank snakes. Instead, it was filled with photographs. Hundreds of them, stacked tight, all 4x6 prints. At first, I thought they were random, until I pulled a few out and realized they were of me. In my car, at the hardware store, walking to get groceries, even in my backyard, mowing the lawn. Most of them were recent, within the last month. Paige's handwriting marked the dates on the back in small, careful letters. One photo made my stomach turn. Me sleeping in bed, taken from the side of the room where she used to keep her nightstand. That was the night I thought I heard her get up for water, but she never came back to bed. I remember because I checked the time, 2:47 a.m., and assumed she'd fallen asleep on the couch. I sat on the floor surrounded by the pictures, the red mug still on the counter, the empty house buzzing with a silence that seemed alive. And then, from somewhere upstairs, I heard it, the sound of a door clicking shut. For a good 30 seconds, I didn't move. The sound was unmistakable. A door upstairs had just clicked shut. It wasn't the wind, and it wasn't the house settling. Someone was here. My first instinct should have been to grab the phone and call the cops. But since mine was dead and the landline had vanished with the rest of the furniture, I was left with 2 options. Leave now, or go up there and see who, or what, was waiting. Against every bit of common sense, I started climbing the stairs, slow enough that they barely creaked. The house felt colder than it had 10 minutes ago, as if that single sound had drained the warmth out of the air. At the top of the stairs, the hallway looked exactly as empty as it had earlier. But the second door on the left, the one to the small guest room we almost never used, was now closed. I remember leaving it open because that's where I'd dumped some of my work shirts after finding the closet empty. My hand was sweating when I reached for the doorknob, and for some reason I pressed my ear against the wood first. No breathing, no movement, just silence. I turned the knob slowly and pushed it open. The room was bare except for one thing. A single wooden chair in the middle, facing the window. Sitting on the chair was an envelope, thick and sealed, with my name written in Paige's handwriting. I tore it open and found pages, dozens of them, covered in tight, deliberate writing. It wasn't a letter. It was a list. Each page contained a date, a location, and a short, cryptic note. June 4th, she saw him by the paper. June 18th, no umbrella. Watched from across the street. July 2nd, he never noticed. Every single entry was about me, but none of them made sense. Some went back months. Some included phrases that made my skin crawl, like "he sleeps too still" and "the key works every time." As I flipped through the pages, a shadow moved across the hallway. Quick, but solid enough that I knew I hadn't imagined it. By the time I stepped out of the guest room, the hallway was empty again. Only now, the box of photographs I'd left downstairs was gone. I stood in that hallway, the air heavy and still, trying to convince myself that maybe I had moved the box without realizing it. But the truth sat in my chest like a stone. I hadn't. Someone had been in the house while I was upstairs. I moved fast, scanning every room on the main floor, my footsteps echoing in the stripped-down space. Nothing. No box. No sign of forced entry. No footprints in the faint layer of dust that had started to gather since the furniture disappeared. It was as if the photographs had simply evaporated. I tried the front door, locked. The back door too. I even checked the basement, which I usually avoided because it always smelled faintly of mildew and old metal, but it was empty, just the hum of the water heater and my own breath sounding too loud in the dark. When I came back upstairs, the envelope with the list was still sitting on the chair, but now the top page was missing. The one with the most recent date, 3 days ago, was gone. That was when I realized something I'd been trying not to admit. I wasn't just being watched. I was being managed. Whoever was doing this didn't just know where I was. They were controlling what I saw, what I found, and maybe even what I thought I remembered. The thought made me dizzy, and I grabbed the kitchen counter to steady myself. My eyes fell on the red mug, still exactly where it had been, but now there was something inside it. Not the house key from earlier, that was gone too. In its place was a small scrap of lined notebook paper with 3 words written in that same precise handwriting. "Stop looking down." I froze. The ceiling above me creaked, slow and deliberate. I didn't want to go back upstairs. Every part of me was screaming to get out, to just walk away from the house and never return. But something in me, stubbornness, maybe, or the pathetic hope that Paige was still here, and this was some kind of twisted explanation, kept me moving toward the stairs. The sound above me stopped the second my foot hit the first step. When I reached the top, the hallway light was off. I knew I'd left it on. And from the far end of the hallway, in the dark, I heard her voice. Not calling my name. Not saying hello. Just a quiet whisper that was so soft, I almost thought I imagined it. "You're late." Her voice was so faint I almost doubted I'd heard it at all, but my body reacted before my brain could catch up. My pulse kicked up, the kind of pounding that makes your fingertips throb, and for a second I thought about running back down the stairs and straight out the front door. But the hallway ahead of me, dark and quiet, pulled me forward in this slow, reluctant way. I moved step by step, every floorboard under my feet groaning like they were warning me. By the time I reached the end, I half expected to find nothing but an empty wall and my imagination mocking me. Instead, the last door on the right, the one to our bedroom, was open just a crack. The faint smell of her perfume drifted out, that floral scent she wore only when we went somewhere nice. I pushed the door open, and the first thing I noticed wasn't her. It was the bed. It was there. The same bed that had been gone along with all the other furniture just hours ago. Perfectly made, crisp sheets, 2 pillows fluffed, and sitting on the edge of it, facing away from me, was Paige. Her hair was longer than I remembered, like she hadn't cut it since she left, and she was wearing the blue sweater I gave her last Christmas. I almost said her name, but something about the way she was sitting, completely still, hands in her lap, made me hesitate. I walked around the bed to face her, but when she looked up, it wasn't the expression I'd expected. No relief, no anger, no tears, just this calm, almost bored look, like she'd been waiting for me longer than she thought she would. "You're late," she said again, the exact same tone as before. I asked her where she'd been, why the house was empty, why she'd taken everything. She didn't answer any of that. She just tilted her head slightly and said, "You didn't follow the list. You weren't supposed to skip ahead." I glanced down, confused, and saw that in her hands she was holding the missing page from the envelope, the one dated 3 days ago. Before I could ask what it meant, she stood up, walked past me without touching me, and left the room. By the time I turned to follow her into the hallway, she was gone. Not down the stairs, not in any other room. Just gone. And the bed? Gone too. The room was empty again, like she'd never been there. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I just paced through the empty house, checking every corner, listening for any sound that might mean she'd come back. But the hours passed in dead silence, and by the time morning crept through the windows, I realized something that made my stomach knot. I wasn't sure if I wanted to see her again or if I was terrified she might actually return. My head was heavy, my eyes felt raw, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. The house felt like it was holding me there, like if I walked away, I'd miss something important. Around noon, I decided to get out, even just for coffee. Stepping outside was jarring, too bright, too normal. Cars passed, neighbors walked their dogs, and no one had any idea my life was unraveling in strange, impossible ways. I drove to the little diner on the edge of town, hoping for a moment of normalcy. But when I slid into a booth and the waitress handed me a menu, something slipped out from between the laminated pages, a Polaroid photo, face down. I picked it up, and my breath caught. It was me, taken less than an hour ago, standing in my driveway holding my car keys. On the back, in her handwriting, were the words, "Still not where you're supposed to be." I looked around the diner, scanning every face, but no one was watching me. No Paige, no strangers that stood out. My coffee went cold while I sat there trying to decide if I should go to the police again, but I already knew what they'd say. No crime, no proof, just paranoia. So I paid, left, and drove straight back to the house, locking the doors behind me. When I went upstairs, I found the envelope with the list sitting on the hallway floor. Only now it had more pages than before, and some of the new entries weren't about past dates. They were about tomorrow, and the day after that. And the last entry simply read, "The 7th day, don't be home." I stared at those words, feeling a cold certainty that whatever happened on that 7th day would decide if I ever saw her again, or if I really wanted to. The moment I read that line, "The 7th day, don't be home," it stopped being just a mystery. It became a deadline. Every morning after that, I woke up with the date burned into my brain, a mental clock ticking down whether I wanted it to or not. The first couple of days passed with nothing unusual, or at least nothing I could see. I tried to live normally, but every time I stepped outside, I felt eyes on me. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. I'd catch flashes of movement reflected in store windows or the rearview mirror while driving. Once, I even saw a figure across the street at night, standing so still it almost blended into the shadows. By the time I looked a second time, it was gone. On the 4th day, something shifted. I came home from running errands and found the front door wide open, though I knew I'd locked it. Inside, nothing was taken, because there was nothing left to take, but in the middle of the living room sat the red mug again. This time, it was filled with dirt, and sticking out of it was a single Polaroid. It showed a chair in the guest room, the same chair where I'd found the envelope before. But in this picture, someone was sitting in it, wearing my clothes, head tilted just enough that their face was in shadow. The timestamp in the corner was from that morning, hours before I'd even left the house. By the 5th day, I stopped questioning whether Paige was doing this alone. There was a precision to it, a pattern that felt bigger than one person. More Polaroids started appearing in random places: the glove compartment of my car, the pocket of a jacket I hadn't worn in weeks. Each one showed me in places I didn't remember being: standing in front of a bus stop in another town, walking down an unfamiliar alley, sitting on a bench beside a man whose face had been deliberately blurred. Every photo was stamped with a time, but no dates. It was like they were trying to tell me when, not where. Last night, the 6th night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, reading the list again and again, trying to find a clue in the older entries. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. Every 7th entry on the list had a tiny dot next to it, like a secret marker. The first dot lined up with the week Paige left. The second, with the week my car was mysteriously keyed in a grocery store parking lot. The third, with the week I'd gotten a phone call at 3:14 a.m. and heard nothing but breathing on the other end. And now, the latest dot was for tomorrow. I don't know if I should leave or if leaving is exactly what they want me to do. All I know is that whatever's coming is the reason Paige disappeared, the reason she's been pulling me through this twisted scavenger hunt. And if I'm still here tomorrow night, I might finally get my answers. Or I might disappear like she did. I woke up before sunrise on the 7th day, the list lying on the nightstand beside me like it had been waiting all night. I decided I wasn't going to run. If whatever this was had been building toward today, then I needed to see it through. The morning was too quiet, almost expectant, the air heavy like a storm was about to break. I spent hours pacing the house, checking every window, watching the driveway. Noon came, then 2, then 5. Every creak in the floorboards made my chest tighten, but nothing happened. Just after 7, there was a knock at the door. Not the slow, deliberate rhythm from before. This was quick, urgent. I opened it without thinking, and there she was. Paige. No shadows, no vanishing, no riddles. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in weeks, but her eyes were steady. Before I could speak, she stepped forward and hugged me so tightly I forgot to breathe for a moment. She whispered, "It's over." And for the first time in days, I felt my shoulders drop. We sat at the kitchen counter, and she finally explained. She'd found out months ago that someone had been following me, someone dangerous, and she'd been working with a private investigator to track them. The list was part of a plan to keep me moving in ways that would throw them off. The Polaroids, the mug, the knocks, it had all been staged to make the real stalker think they were in control, when in reality they'd been lured into making a mistake. Last night, the police caught them. It didn't erase the fear I'd felt, or the strange, surreal week we'd just survived, but as we talked, the empty house didn't feel quite so hollow anymore. We made coffee, out of that same red mug, and started planning how to put things back together. For the first time in what felt like forever, I believed we actually could. The danger was gone. Paige was home. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I was looking ahead.